From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Well, hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen and proudly welcoming you to this Monday's edition of For the People. It's July the 24th. It's 2017. And here we are. I'm looking at a beautiful ship. I love the water, and I live in Florida. I'm sorry if you like Florida. Some of you vacation here. Well, I live here year-round and just ended up here. It was a girl, I tell you. And it was 2001. I've lived in New York and lived in Los Angeles and D.C. and Memphis, Tennessee with my radio career. I've gone a lot of different places, but I have settled here and made home for myself in the Bay Area with my family and love the water. But had an interesting experience as a young guy. I got to work aboard a 136-foot schooner, and it was all wood and brass. And had 2 Detroit diesels on it, and it could sail. And also, it was motorized if need be. But we mostly sailed unless we were getting into some dicey weather, or if we needed to be at a certain point at a certain time and the wind wasn't cooperating, we'd turn on the engines, and only then. But and if you've worked aboard any type of craft, there's work to be done, but especially a wooden vessel, all hands on deck, starboard and port watch. I mean, I learned everything there was. I was on the helm. That was like the best. Galley work. But man, when you're doing brasso and you're the handrails, I mean, there was so much brass, but it was absolutely beautiful. And I got to see the Great Lakes, all through Canada. That was gorgeous, and went through all the locks and stuff like that, and saw the Northern Lights when I was 18. I was 17. And then, when I got off, it was 18, but about a year experience, and, really have a fondness for the open water, and it's just gorgeous. Well, anyways, the reason I'm mentioning all of this, yes, there is a lead-in on this. I'm looking at the USS Constitution. Do you know why I'm mentioning the USS Constitution? Well, I'm going to tell you. Sunday, another happening. The USS Constitution, the world's oldest commissioned warship. Believe it or not, it's still floating. This wooden ship was launched first in 1797. And earned its famous nickname, notching victories in the War of 1812. So it's got a little makeover here and has returned to the Boston waters. It was an undocking of the old Ironsides. It's going to mark the end of the restoration work that started 2 years ago, according to officials. A big celebration being held at the USS Constitution Museum. The USS Constitution guided into a dry dock in Boston in 2015 to actually get repaired. And they say the ship has been the cornerstone of the Navy for a very long time, says Robert Gorsa, the Constitution's commanding officer. To be a part of the ship is a true honor. The restoration extended the life of the nearly 2 feet thick vessel, the last remaining survivor of 6 ships created when President George Washington signed the Naval Armament Act. Says Margaretta Desi, a historian, a Navy historian, and Heritage Command. Hundreds gathered about the ship Sunday afternoon as workers prepared for its return to the water, the Boston Globe reported. The ship is set to be floated off its banks around 10 p.m. and into the harbor about 11:30 p.m. The ship enters dry dock about every 20 years for below the waterline repairs. The most recent work included replacing 100 hull planks and installing 2,200 new copper sheets, 500 of which were signed by nearly 100,000 museum visitors, according to the USS Constitution Museum. President Anne Grimes ran, who called the ship a wonderful symbol for our democracy. And it was meant to last for, 10 to 20 years and have the ship here for more than 200 years later. It needs constant care, Rand said. The Constitution entered the dock at the historic Charleston Naval Yard on May 18th, and on Sunday, expected to have the highest tide of the summer. The dry dock at the Navy Yard will be flooded, and the ship will be lifted off the Neil block that night. That happened last night, folks, by the way, when the height of the water at the dry dock equals the height of the water at the Boston Harbor. And then the ship went in, and once that vessel is refloated, they said it'll be temporarily docked at a nearby pier to undergo more restoration work until September, when it will reopen for public tours. Man, folks, think about this. That's something. Boston's beautiful. You go to Boston Harbor, so much rich history. But to think that George Washington commissioned this ship and it's still afloat, gone through how many restorations since? Come on. You got to check out this wooden ship. It was launched in 1797. It's called the USS Constitution. Newly restored, still some more work to be done, but that's worth seeing. That's some, and just to see some of the Navy obviously has, with technology and with shipbuilding, we're not building wooden ships anymore, but I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. If you ever get to go underway with a wooden ship, it's definitely a labor of love these days, and you know it, pulling them out and getting them barnacles removed and all the work that takes place with it. But it's definitely to hear that head rigging crashing down in the waves, and man, it's intense. It's intense for sure. And if you're not familiar with it, and if you don't have your sea legs and haven't been out to sea, and you hear that for the very first time, they crash down, you think that the the boat is going to fall apart, but no, they're meant for it, and they do a really good job. But again, you gotta love it, like most things. All right, this is fun. All right, little history for the show. Chuck used to play a lot of music, and I play this because Chuck Schumer, and I agree with him. There's sometimes there's things that he says that I say to myself, all right, Chuck's got it together. I think Chuck's on to something here. And when I'm mentioning your Chuck Schumer, he had some choice words for Hillary Clinton. He had an interview over the weekend blasting Hillary Clinton for blaming Russia for her loss for now President Trump, who picked up on the jab on Monday's tweet. He says, when you lose to somebody who has 40% popularity, you don't blame other things, Comey, Russia. You blame yourself, Schumer told the Washington Post. So what did we do wrong? People didn't know what we stood for. Just what we were against Trump, and still believe that. Schumer of New York was referring to comments Clinton had made, tying her November election loss to multiple factors, including former FBI Director James Comey's decision to reopen the investigation into her private email servers, as well as the email hack of her campaign chairman account. Good job. Oh, Donald Trump weighed in. He says, after 1 year of investigation with zero evidence being found, Chuck Schumer just stated that Democrats should blame ourselves, not Russia. You don't think that Chuck Schumer would ever articulate these things, but again, if Democrats don't change their dance, their tune, they're not going to have any shot anywhere, especially around the White House, unless their message does clean it. You cannot be the victim. You keep on claiming that part. Look what happened to Bill Clinton. And here's a little reminder, a little nostalgia. Again, if you were a big Chuck Harder fan back in the 90s, do you remember this song, Wrong's Not Right? By the way, used by permission, Steve Voss. But this brings back a lot of good memories here.
have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Some people paint the world in shades of green. Makes it easy to explain away their lies.
I never told anybody to lie.
Rationalize.
Not a single time. Never.
They blur distinctions and they make excuses. Nothing changes what the truth is.
These allegations are false.
Wrong's not right. Wrong is wrong. Right is right. There is different as black and white. Like it or not, it's a fact of life. Things are what they are. Wrong's not right.
I think the American people know 2 or 3 things about me now that they didn't know.
Think about who the kids look up to. The president on the evening news, he lies.
My answers were legally accurate.
It's just not right.
I misled people, including even my wife.
In your mind, it's gotta be confusing. He wins, he should be losing one day. He'll pay the price.
I deeply regret that.
Wrong is wrong, right is right. There is different as black and white. Like it or not, it's a fact of life. Things are what they are. Wrong's not right. The things we do, the words we say,
I did not do that. I did not do that.
will be remembered on Judgment Day.
It's nobody's business.
Wrong is wrong, right is right. There is different as black and white. Like it or not, it's a fact of life. Things are what they are.
Even presidents have private lives.
Wrong is wrong, right is right. There is different as black and white. Like it or not, it's a fact of life. Things are what they are. Wrong's not right.
This has gone on too long, cost too much, and hurt too many innocent people.
Wrong's Not Right on For the People. Steve Voss, man, Chuck, he burned the airwaves up with that song. But I actually was going through our library here at For the People, and I thought, man, I got to pop that in there. That was released with Steve Voss in 1998. And by the way, Steve Voss's music still can be found at stevevoss.com, so you can download his albums, find out what's going on. And he's made a lot of music since the 90s. A lot of really, really neat stuff. By the way, remember when Clinton, back in May, what did she actually say? She said that she would take absolute personal responsibility for losing the presidential campaign. But it's kind of interesting, and time goes on, people forget that. We don't. But then she went on to blame Comey and the Russian interference. And that's what Schumer is referring to. That's what Donald Trump's talking about. That's what we've been talking about. Not taking responsibility. How do you learn? I don't know if the Clintons will ever actually take personal responsibility for the things that they have done throughout their career. It's the things that have happened during the Clintons, what they've done for our country, and what they've done for themselves. More importantly, it seems like they've made out like bandits. There is an investigation that's still going on with her emails, and also the foundation that's not been let go. Clinton Cash, great book, by the way. If you want to do Peter Schweitzer, we've had him on the broadcast before, but that is a book that really has the dots connected. It shows the spending. It shows how the countries, and Russia is why I bring it up, has put a lot of money into the coffers of the Clintons through the years. But it's interesting how they associate that with the winning of Donald Trump. And still, it's kind of